In this video, we're going to use a gauge to display the readings from the temperature probe we learned about in the previous video. This is the 9th video in a series of 10 about sensors. For this video, you're going to need the JackBord Basic, a USB-C cable, a PC or Chromebook running the Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge browser. You're going to need 3 10 or 20 centimeter female-female jumper wires, 1 temperature probe, 1 M4 nut, 1 M4 bolt, and 1 M4 spanner. Now, of course, before we can use the temperature probe, we actually need to connect it to the JackBord Basic. And just as an overview, you can see that you've got the probe here. We have the M4 nut and bolt which are holding it to the JackBord Basic. And then these are the jumper wires that provide the power and also data for the temperature probe to the JackBord Basic. And then on this side we have a more detailed view. So this is the temperature probe, which is this part over here. And then this represents port D on the JackBord Basic, which is this one here. And so the 3 volt jumper wire comes over here, and then it goes to the 3 volt pin on the Basic. The ground pin from the sensor goes to the ground pin on port D of the Basic. And then finally the data pin goes from the data line on the sensor over to port pin D1 on the JackBord Basic. And just be careful, because these pins on this side are actually port C, they're not port D. So this port is different to the A and B and C ports, AB ports, because on the AB ports there are 2 of each pin. So there are 2 A1s, 2 A2s, etc. But on port C and D, which is this guy here, you only have 1 each. Just take a minute and check your connections against these pictures. So this one here shows the jumper wires connecting to the temperature sensor itself. So you've got the 3 volt power, ground, and data. And then over here we've got the corresponding cables going into port D. So this is port D1, which is the blue data line. Then we've got the ground line, which goes to the green cable, which is for ground. And then the yellow jumper goes into the 3 volt pin on port D. And then this is just an overview picture. Check yours against these and make sure that they match. And again, remember, the color of the wires isn't important, it's where they go that matters. As we did before, we set up the temperature probe by running the SW1 on command. So I'm here on the start page and we've got our temperature probe connected. So now we're going to run the S1W on command. And here we go. So we run it, and now the Basic is telling us that it's found the temperature probe and that it's on channel 37. So now the JackBord Basic knows that this probe exists and we can get some readings from it. Now, as we did before with the light meter, we set up the put gauge command. We tell it we want it to start at X10, Y150. Now here's the interesting bit. We're using channel 37 because if you remember, the temperature probe's readings appear on channel 37. Our gauge is going to be 400 pixels wide. The title will be temperature degrees C. Now the minimum value I've used is -10 to a maximum of +50. Now if you were going to measure the temperature of boiling water, you would make the maximum 110. And this is the gauge we get. So again, we've got a -10 here, temperature in degrees Celsius, and 50, and then the current reading. So this will set up our gauge. I'm here on the start page, so we'll just go to the show tab. I'm going to type in the command, so I'm going to go put gauge 10, 150. We're going to use channel 37 because that's what the probe's connected to. And then we're going to make the width is going to be equal to 400. We're going to make the name equal to temp degrees C. And we're going to make the minimum is going to be equal to -10, and the maximum is going to be equal to 50. Run that, and there we have it. So currently the temperature is 30. If I run it again, it's still 30. So now if I take the probe and I put it in some water, in a glass of cold water, I run it, you can see it's falling. So this is our temperature gauge, but we're manually updating it. So we're going from -10 to +50, temperature degrees Celsius, and currently it's 21. But I have to manually update it. So to summarize, the temperature probe lets you measure temperature at a distance, and we used a gauge using the PG command to display values from the temperature probe. And a disadvantage of what we did is that in order to update the gauge, you have to run the command. Otherwise, it won't update. In the next video, we're going to write a program that will make our temperature gauge update automatically. To jump directly to this video, visit jb.works and search the TMT code shown on the screen. For more information and to get help, visit jb.works.